With E3 nearly upon us, you start to see all kinds of leaks popping out of the woodwork. One of the most recent ones is an obviously fake Kirby Star Knights leak, but this got me wondering. We're likely to see Kirby 3DS at this year's E3, but what sort of game will it be? Today I thought I'd take a look at all the evidence and come up with my crazy theory for what Kirby 2017 might be. So what is my crazy theory? I think that Kirby 2017 is going to be a fighting game developed by Masahiro Sakurai. Yep, let that sink in for just a minute.
This guy sounds like a crackpot!
You're probably thinking I've gone mad. I mean, Sakurai hasn't even touched Kirby outside of Smash Bros., so why would he suddenly be back now and making a Kirby game of all things? Well, let's take this step by step, shall we? First, let's look at the evidence for why it's a fighting game. When Kirby 3DS was first announced at Nintendo Direct, it was described as an action multiplayer title, and this has been kept up even to the most recent reports about the game. But on the Miiverse for Team Kirby Clash Deluxe, we got some more information. Stated by a member of HAL's public relations, Satoshi Ishida, he said, "As for upcoming games, we're going to let Kirby loose in a 3D world this summer in Kirby's Blowout Blast, and we're also planning an action fighting game for next winter." This is the only time that Kirby 2017 has been described as a fighting game, but none of the other statements have refuted this fact. They've all just called it an action multiplayer title. This has sparked a lot of debate over what sort of fighting game it will be. Will it be a traditional 2D fighter, a 3D fighter, or will it be something more unique like Power Stone? But the thing is, Kirby already has a fighting game on the 3DS. It's called Kirby Fighters Deluxe, originally packaged with Triple Deluxe and then eventually released as a standalone with more features. This game uses the Kirby engine for its own take on the Smash Bros. Formula, and it was met somewhat positively. The gameplay is fun but not very competitive focused, and all the characters are Kirby, using his various copy abilities. But an expansion of this could see individual characters coming along, far more modes, and maybe tweaking done to make it fit a fighting game more. This is where Sakurai comes in. After all, who knows Smash Bros. Style games better than the guy who made Smash Bros? But that alone wouldn't be justifiable for why I think he's working on this game. So let's take a look at the other evidence. First of all, this is a 3DS title. This is important because in Sakurai Column Volume 523, My Thoughts on the Nintendo Switch, Sakurai seems to give the implication that he's not worked with the system. This is unusual because we know for at least a year he's had a brand new project. Many assumed it would be on the Nintendo Switch, some even thought it would be the rumoured Smash Bros. Port that's coming out. But that doesn't necessarily need to be the case. Heck, it could be something non-Nintendo at all, but that would really be different for Sakurai, who's released every single game so far on a Nintendo platform. Except for that random Mushi King game, but he didn't make that for any system, so yeah. Now, it's entirely possible that he's just talking about stuff that he already knew, except that all the information sounds like it came from the January presentation, and the way he words stuff doesn't make it seem like he's touched the system himself. He talks about certain features that he definitely would have wanted to know on if he was working on a Switch title, as if he's never used it before. Meanwhile, he's very familiar with the Nintendo 3DS, and the development cycle of this game would match up perfectly. HAL has already talked about how using the Kirby engine allowed them to make Planet Robobot in just 2 years, and that was making a whole lot of new assets as they were trying to make a game that was entirely different from the ones they had made before. A sequel to Kirby Fighters Deluxe, for example, could reuse certain assets from the first game, as well as new assets like enemies and bosses introduced in those two games, thus cutting down on development time by a few months. There is also Sakurai's stance on the Kirby series since he left HAL. After leaving HAL, he never once spoke openly about Kirby outside of the context of Smash Bros. That is, until now. Sakurai attended the Kirby anniversary concert back in April, and even gave a speech talking about the game's development. Some people might say, well, of course, this is expected. After all, he's the series creator, this is the anniversary, it's a logical thing. Except, I'd remind everyone that he didn't do this at the last big anniversary that they did for Kirby 5 years ago. Heck, he didn't mention Kirby at all, not even in one of his columns, which is truly bizarre. But this anniversary is different for some reason. And I don't know if Hal just convinced him to do it, or if he felt like doing it, but if he was working on a new Kirby game, that might be more motivation to start talking about the series again. Sakurai is a control freak, we've seen that with the Smash Bros. Series, so if he's working on this Kirby game, I'm sure he'd want to go into it full force, and talk about every little detail and make his presence known within the game. At the very least, we're due to find out what Sakurai's secret project is now that it's been over a year and a half. Unless he's truly invested in Smash Bros. For Switch, which means he would have been working on Smash Bros. For a good 5 years now, which hasn't happened since the original. I think that finding out what his new game is this year is definitely a possibility, and with a Kirby game just about to come out and his comments on it, I think that the two match up very perfectly. So those are my thoughts on the sort of game I think it will be and why I think Sakurai is working on it, but let's go into a few details on how I imagine this game might play out. As I stated before, the original Kirby fighter only used Kirby. It was Kirby for everything, all the Kirby power-ups and all that, and all the other enemies and bosses just appeared as stage hazards. This could happen again. Having each power-up be a different fighter makes sense, but I think if Sakurai was working on this and how much he's commented on fan service, we'd be far more likely to see different and unique characters adopting these copy abilities. I don't think all the Kirbys would come back, but instead of Beam Kirby, you could have Waddle Doo, for example, or instead of Cutter Kirby, you'd have Sir Kibble. With all this in mind, I decided to draft up a quick roster for the game. The original Kirby Fighters Deluxe only came with 12 playable characters, which is the same as the original Super Smash Bros. Game. With this in mind, I decided that this sequel should have the same amount as Melee, being 25. This might not actually be the case, but it was an easy number to kind of put together. So which characters should make the cut? Well, obviously we have Kirby, and then King Dedede, Meta Knight, and Bandana D. These four are the main recurring playable Kirby cast after all. Following this, I think we're going to have a bunch of Kirby characters based on the previous copy abilities from Kirby Fighters Deluxe, as well as some new ones. These are like the helpers that you saw in Kirby Superstar and the cancelled Kirby game for the GameCube. They are Parasol D, Waddle Doo, Sir Kibble, Poppy Bros Jr., Knuckle Joe, Burning Leo, Plasma Wisp, Biospark, Birdon, Samira, Spinem, Mr. Frosty, Bonkers, and Bugsy. If you want to know more detail about how these characters will play and which abilities they take, then check out the article I'm going to link below, because describing all that now would make the video way too long. And after this we have some big popular characters, mostly villains, who could have unique playstyles or adopt some other of Kirby's abilities, such as Whip or Bell. So these are Dark Matter, Marks, Galactonite, Prince Fluff, Magalore, Taranza, and Suzy. It accompanies both the old and new of Kirby, which I know some people are worried about if Sakurai would be working on it, as they might think that he would only stick to the Kirby games he knew. And perhaps there would be a balance of that on stages and potential boss battles. But I think for the characters, especially as he'll be working with Hal on this game, they would try to include as many from both sides of the Kirby history. Smash Bros. Is a celebration of Nintendo's history, so a Kirby game done in the same style would be a celebration of Kirby's history, which is perfect for an anniversary game. You could have all kinds of stuff such as trophies and music and stages from across all games, bosses, items, etc. And even if the gameplay doesn't turn out to be Smash Bros. Related, we can still get a game like that, a game that purely celebrates all of Kirby's history, and I think a fighting game is a very easy way to do that. And I think Sakurai would be the perfect man to do it. But I guess we'll find out very shortly. Nintendo's E3 presentation is only a few days away, and I think we're going to see it during that. And if Sakurai is involved, you know he's going to appear and make some messages about it. Heck, maybe he'll appear to introduce the Smash port and then go on to talk about this new Kirby game. We're just going to have to wait and see. But guys, my name is NantenJex, and that was my crazy theory. If I'm right, then please feel free to consider me a seer among gamers, and listen to all of my crazy theories from now on about the future of Nintendo and their games. And if I'm wrong, I'm sure we'll get a fun game, but I don't think I'm wrong. Well guys, if you liked what you heard, then please hit that like button down below and share this video with as many people as you can before the Nintendo E3 event happens. Make sure you hit that subscribe button to stay up to date with all of our E3 coverage, especially if Smash for Switch gets announced. You know we're going to be having a field day with that. And make sure to follow us at Twitter at AllSourceGaming and me specifically at Mr. Nintendo. Remember guys, we also have a Patreon if you want to help us support that. And make sure to stay up to date with our actual website, sourcegaming.info, and now source-gaming.com. Both domains work. We finally managed to grab that .com. Until next time guys, make sure to keep all your sources in check.